Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to call the September 25th, 2023 meeting of the OSIDA Board to order. I'm going to practice that. There we go. Now we're official. Okay. Just to be clear that this is a meeting that is subject to the Open Records Act, and we are compliant with that act. Let's see. Kim, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Mr. Howie? Ms. Gurry? Mr. Gillette?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Ms. Rolls?
Aye.
Mr. Henry? Mr. Siegfried?
Aye.
Thank you. And we have 4 members here, so we do meet the quorum requirement. I would like to introduce our visitors, so if you are comfortable doing so, would you please just stand and introduce yourself and tell us your interest in being here today?
Paul Moniz, I'm a reporter with Oklahoma Watch.
Talk to us Oklahoma State Treasurer, and the Oklahoma Space Board just happens to be in my back door, so I'm always curious what's going on.
Excellent.
Former board member. Nick Archer, District 55, Todd's replacement there when he term limited, so the Space Board is in our district, happy to represent.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
Bailey Warren, Assistant Attorney General, and Legal Counsel to the Board.
Thank you.
I'm Josh Waters, Chief Dreamer of a space resource startup called Insistent Galactic Operations. We like to say IGO. Our plan is to help harvest and cultivate resources in outer space, Moon, Mars, asteroids. Knowledge is the first space resource, so we're in the prospecting phase of that. So there's things that we're wanting to do. The spaceport in Oklahoma, I've been born and raised here, so it just screams where I want to build things, where I want to launch things, and we'll see.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm Douglas Square from Space and Defense Advisory Services in Oklahoma City. I think you guys know Space Force, hopefully.
Yes.
You make that clearly by now.
Yes, thank you.
So my name is Gabe Sherman, I'm representing the Artemis Group.
Thank you.
Salute Jones, for New Aerospace Center.
Okay. Good. And in the back? Hi.
Sorry. I'm Lori Bandy, and I guess I'm a photographer, CASA worker, and interested in what goes on with the Air Force.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate your interest in OSIDA. So our next order of business would be to approve the minutes. And Deidre is not here, so let's go ahead. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes, I make a motion to approve the minutes as proposed. Second.
Okay, any discussion, comments? Okay, Kim, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Bailey, Mr. Siegfried?
Aye.
And Chairman Rolls?
Aye. All right, thank you very much. And moving on, the treasurer's report, we all received that. Did you have a chance to review it? And do we have any discussion, or can we receive the treasurer's report?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Thank you. Kim?
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Siegfried?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye. Thank you. All right, we are on to agenda item number 5, and that would be the executive director's report.
All right. Thank you very much. So just a real quick update of what's going on. The ARPA monies, we've got our water and wastewater project. We've got $4 million set aside for that, for the ARPA monies. The prep money will be used to back any of that up if it exceeds the $4 million amount. We're not sure yet what it all is going to entail. they're still working on the scope of work, and then with any project, as we start to peel things back, as they start to dig up pipes, we expect that they're going to probably find some more things that need to be addressed. But we do know that Synergy does have the notice to proceed on the projects. They've already begun doing some surveys and analysis on the wastewater lagoons, and a temporary flow meter is going to be installed. That'll help give them some more data and what they know what the system can take in and how we can advance it going forward. So the next steps, we'll identify a contractor and then select the contractors based on that.
When will the assessment be done? When do they expect to be done?
The assessment, I don't have a time frame for that. They're supposed to get, I just found out Friday that they've got the assessment or the tools in place at the lagoon. And our crew didn't notify us of that, so we didn't get to talk with them when they came out to put those in. So we expect to get with them hopefully this week and find out where they are in that process so they can give us the information. And I'll get that back to you when I find that out.
Okay, thank you.
A high-speed internet access project, some things have changed. We thought we had a process figured out. Things have changed up a little bit, so, but we did have a good discussion with the Office of Management and Enterprise Services. They gave us an idea that we might be able to use a different process to put our system in, so we're going to go and visit with them about the details on putting that together. The broadband office had a pathway for it, and then we thought they had that control. We discussed it with our general counsel. We thought that might be the way to go. We've learned in the last few weeks that they're making some changes to that process, so they identified another one. Given the dollar figure on this is a $250,000 amount, that may put us into a different realm that we can do things a little differently than what the broadband office, which is dealing with multi-millions of dollars, they have to do it a little differently. So maybe we can be able to use that process for $250,000 in lower projects. But we expect that we shouldn't have any problem getting the project done by December of 2026. But we've got to visit with the Office of OMES to find out what the new process is going to be for us.
Thank you.
Okay. Acting as our agent, the Aeronautics Commission engineers have reviewed and are reviewing what was in an updated pavement report and scope of work from Delta Airport Services. They have pushed back and said, you guys go back and revisit this again. So we visited with the Delta Airport folks a week and a half ago out at Burns Flat. We took them around and showed them the pavement, showed them some areas we want to have it addressed. They're going to go back and put together a different scope of work and cost analysis, and they'll get that back to OAC. They expect to show that to their board at their October meeting, and then I'll bring that figure back to this board to show what the latest and greatest is. As such, they've pulled the electronics portion of that project out. It was a scope of work for the electronics and the pavement. OAC believed that figure was too high, and so they pushed it back on them, and then finally said, well, you guys just do the pavement. We'll separate the electronics portion out and rebid that, and we expect to have a different figure from that, hopefully by the next meeting. So we'll have two different projects. We'll have a pavement project and an electrical runway light project. Delta Airport Systems also working on an airport layout plan for CSM. That'll be the blueprint for future airport activities, where to put things, how to place things in your airport so you don't get ahead of yourself and paint yourself into a corner where you can't have new development because you've put something in a place where you can't develop beyond that point. This is a component of the FAA's larger master plan agreement or master plan update that they're going to require of us. To be able to get any airport funding from FAA, you have to have an ALP and an MPU in place, and so we now have enough based aircraft that we can apply for those funds, and so we've got to be compliant with FAA, so we've got to put those projects together. Delta's putting a study together, their ALP study for us, and they should have that information available to us before the close of the calendar year. A large aerospace manufacturer is currently at Clinton Sherman this week. Was there last week performing tests on one of their aircraft. They expect to come back later this winter and conduct work on another aircraft that they're working on. I've got a picture here in a minute that's kind of fun. That kind of shows the activity taking place, because when they come out, they bring about 70 engineers and technicians with them. And if you have trouble finding a rental car in Oklahoma City, it's because they're probably all out in Burns Flat, Oklahoma right now. And a hotel room is the same thing out there. Hotel rooms are filled up in Clinton and Cordell and Elk City because these crew are out here. Kratos, we expect them to return probably this week, or if not in October. They're going to continue to do performance and ground testing on a vehicle that they produce right here in Oklahoma City at their manufacturing plant. So that's 2 different kind of aircraft that they manufacture in Oklahoma that they do testing on out at Burns Flat at our facility. And then when I don't have aircraft in the hangars, I've got a company that resurfaces basketball courts. And they've got a court loaded up in one of the hangars right now. As soon as this large aircraft company leaves at the end of this week, they'll move those courts into that hangar and they'll start resurfacing them. And they've got 3 courts lined up to finish in that hangar this year. So they're all pretty neat. And you can talk to me offline and I'll tell you what some of these are. Pretty exciting, but it's kind of fun to have business taking place in the hangars when there's not aerospace business taking place in there. Just kind of a flashback at the Paris Air Show. Speaking of Kratos, this is Eric DeMarco. He is the president and CEO of Kratos Defense and Systems, and he sponsored a breakfast at the Paris Air Show, and at least no fewer than 3 times during that breakfast that morning, which was attended by nearly 100 people, Clinton Sherman and the spaceport were mentioned in glowing in glowing remarks, talking about the capabilities that companies like Kratos can do at this facility. So it was great publicity for the spaceport and airport, and it's just good to be hanging out with a guy that moved part of his operation into Oklahoma, and they brought aircraft manufacturing back to the state of Oklahoma. This is what the front of my hangar looks like right now. That's just some of the cars that you can see. There's usually 2 cars sitting out in front of the hangar and in front of the air traffic control tower. So having that kind of attention, and they've got engineers and technicians in the bottom floor of the tower. You can see a trailer on the right side. They're filling that, and there's a trailer just like it on the other side of the tower. And then there's some personnel in our headquarters building, and then we also have several in one of our hangars that are doing the actual technical work on the aircraft, replacing tires, brakes, and that nature. So they're there 24 hours a day. So they swap out. So there's always somebody from this company at the site while they're there.
And Craig, how long will they be there?
They're there for usually about 2 weeks for testing. They had a weather delay on one of the days, so their schedule slid a day. So they're going to be here till at least October 2nd, and then they'll return again in November, depending on things before that, how the testing goes. But they usually stayed sometimes 3 weeks, but mostly 2 weeks at a time.
Okay, thanks.
So Tinker and the Primes, OSIDA was a panel moderator for a discussion on space. Tinker and the Primes is focused on Tinker Air Force Base, and so this is kind of unique that they allowed us to talk about space at this entity. It was a great opportunity simply because a lot of the companies that are around Tinker Air Force Base do things focused on trying to get inside the fence and bringing business and doing business across the fence. But if they can learn about the capabilities that space has for Oklahoma, and maybe they can't get inside the gate, well, maybe they want to expand their operations and do other things outside the gate, this is a great opportunity to share with them about what the capabilities are in Oklahoma and what other companies are doing. So we were able to share what Frontier Aerospace, Frontier Electronic Systems is doing in space, what NORDAM is doing. You can see on the stage we have Mr. Bridenstine as well. We're replicating a very similar forum at the Aerospace Day, the Aerospace Forum taking place on November 8th. So we're going to have another panel on space at this event as well. But if you'll notice on your calendar, November 8th is the day that we have a board meeting scheduled. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But if you want to attend the Oklahoma Aerospace Forum, the information's on this slide right here. That's an all-day forum focused on all the things taking place in Oklahoma aerospace-wise. Again, on the FBO, this is what it used to look like. This is what it looked like during the renovations. And this is what it looks like now. This is fantastic. So when a plane lands to refuel, this is what they're greeted with. They walk in and they see this beautiful facility that's the doorstep for Clinton Sherman Airport. We're looking to get some signage that'll go on the fencing around this that'll say, "Welcome to Clinton Sherman Airport, Oklahoma Air Spaceport, Oklahoma," and some more data on it. For the most part, the people sitting in the back of the plane have no clue where they're at and where they're landing. They're getting a drink, they're going to the bathroom, and they're maybe getting something to eat, and they're staying inside this building. So we want to be able to put some signage up and show, hey, this is where you're at, this is what we do here, and hopefully kind of help spread the word. In addition to redoing this FBO, the FBO's Luxair, they just received a DLA fueling contract with the DOD. So these are, and I was hoping Deirdre would be here so she could see, she'd recognize each one of these aircraft and know exactly what they're doing. But we are now able to refuel DOD airplanes at our facility, and so we get a portion of that. But that's sitting, I'm just looking out the back door of the headquarters building, and there's 3 T1s. Bailey, can anybody touch on that? Is that T1 or T6? What's that?
T1, not a T6. I think they're, yeah.
These are
T1.
equivalent of a Lear for the Air Force. So we see those, we see helicopters, we see quite a bit of traffic on the back. As such, if you'll notice, they've got a nose wheel on these, and so we've had to do some and I've got some slides that talk about that in a little bit, but that nose wheel will come in really important in this slide coming up. Premium Aerospace, which has a representative here this morning, they got their certification in early August, and that's going to open the door for them to start rapidly hiring a workforce to continue to do what they have planned. This was in the paper the other day. They have hired an architecture firm to complete the work on the hangars that they plan to refurbish. And you can read that story. I think I sent you the link to that as well if you want to read further on that. But really excited to see the plans taking place there and the expansion that's getting ready to happen.
Yeah, I did have a chance to read that article, and that is very exciting. It's very optimistic and
Absolutely.
a real positive thing for the spaceport.
It's really exciting for Ouachita County and Southwest Oklahoma. We're certainly glad to have them out there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty much it for the director's report. I'll just fold right into the facilities report unless you want to just make a notice that I'm jumping to the facilities report.
We're now moving to the facilities report.
And I'll begin that now. We
Excellent.
just acquired and we're testing a foreign object debris removal system called a FOD Razor. It looked to be a solve-all for us. We've got a street sweeper that we use, but it's only as wide as the street sweeper. This device, I'll show you this next slide here, fits on the back of the truck like that, and it drags these mats around, and it's, for smooth surfaces, it's fantastic. It picks up screws, it'll pick up small rocks, but a lot of our surface looks like that in a lot of places on the airport and on the apron. Fortunately, not on the runways, but on the taxiways, there's a few places that are not nearly as bad, but there'll be some FOD, but they're rough, uneven surfaces. The FOD Razor has these plastic blades that actually touch the ground and scoop everything up, and so they're bouncing, and they're on kind of a roller skate wheel. So if you can imagine what roller skate wheels do on gravel and rock, it's just bouncing around back there. So we're not in love with it, but we like the capability that it has, and we'll visit with the manufacturer to see if there's some tweaks that we can do, but that'll certainly help us in cleaning up our runways and our apron areas. Low profile lighted barriers are something else we're looking at. As you'll see right there, we've got what we could afford at the time, which was it's a railroad tie with some some orange cones nailed to it. It's not lit at night, but you can certainly see it in the daytime. That area is a daytime use area anyway, but we certainly wanted to make sure that at night, if anybody wanders off down in the apron area, that they'll be aware of this. And so these are internationally known barriers. Anybody that is behind a yoke or a stick will certainly recognize, stay away from these areas. So those are going to be on order, and they should be here very soon. So we'll put those out in some areas that spall, you see it where that upheaval right there, that's in the middle of our apron. That's not identified for immediate repair, and if you look at it, it's probably going to take that whole panel, or probably 4 panels right there, that's going to replace that. So what we'll probably do is repair around that. We may keep these out there for a period of time unless we can get some more money to be able to apply toward the apron and fix that up. But that's kind of one of those chicken egg kind of deals. How much do you want to spend fixing the middle of an apron when you've got business on the edges of that and on the runway side? How much attention do you want to put in the center, and how necessary is that? So that's one of the things that, until we can make those decisions, we want to have something that marks that territory and keeps people away from those areas. Our crew, some Western Oklahoma engineering, I think I brought up to this board before. We had some flooding in front of hangar 117. That flooding would continue to go inside that hangar. The fellows got together, they rented a device, and they dredged out a channel next to it, and it's draining really nicely now. We've got a company hired to remove some asbestos in one of the boiler rooms, or in the boiler rooms of both of the hangars that PAC has. We're just waiting on them to set a date to come and start that project. We've got the paperwork all signed and ready. We just need them to come and complete the project. I think I've told you Delta Airport Engineers has assigned us a new engineer, and we met with them last week. We're working with them on the scope of work on the pavement projects. I'll get that information to you, and then we'll be going out to bids very soon. Yeah, that's the flooding before. That's the channel, or what we've got is we've got a farmer tenant that for years when they till the field, they get pretty close to that little ditch, and over years, and after a rain, after he plows like this, when we have a good rain, some of that will silt into that ditch, and so over years it filled in, and that's we'd have that flooding. But that's been alleviated. We've had some pretty decent rains, and it's drained away every time. So kudos to those guys. This is talking about the nose wheel on those jets. That black and yellow line is the pathway on taxiway A that the jets follow to get to the FBO to refuel. And you can see how close, and even the yellow part of that line, it's pretty rough. So we've got some material, and that's it in these boxes. It mixes together. You mix the two compounds together, and it makes this solution that you pour into these gaps and these chuck holes and these cracks, and it self-levels, and it dries and solidifies within just a few hours, and it's harder than concrete. And so we've ordered a few pallets of that, and we intend to go down and fix as much of this as we can through our crew until we can get this pavement project put into place and do some serious repairs to it. But this is our stopgap to fix that in the meantime. That concludes the facilities report.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of good activity going on there, Craig.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, agenda item number 7, we have an update from the Artemis Group. I believe that would be Mr. Sherman.
All right. Good to see you guys. Thank you for having me. Thank you for making time. It has been an exciting month since we've got started on this whole effort. And there are some of the things that I'm going to share with you today that I'd love to go into more detail with you, maybe on a follow-up meeting next week. I think me and former Administrator Bridenstine would love to get on the phone with you and talk to you about some things that I can't say or maybe not go into all the detail today. So I'll start with some of the big picture things. We've got, this week, we're hosting a major company that is considering moving their operations to Oklahoma. Has come together here within the last few weeks, and so this is one of those opportunities that could be transformational for the state, especially whenever it comes to the space industry at large. And whenever you think about OSIDA's role in that, I think this is one of those opportunities where we start to move OSIDA away from just being something that is focused on the spaceport to something that's focused on the Oklahoma space industry at large. So Craig and the team have been very supportive there. And we are looking forward to a good couple days of meetings. We've also been in a position this within the last 30 days, very uniquely, to solve some problems for some space companies that are running into some issues that they did not foresee and were not expecting. And the state of Oklahoma might be the right solution for some of them. And again, these are scenarios that I can definitely go into more detail with. You guys, out of respect of their privacy and where they are in the process, I can go into more detail with you guys offline. So just a few of these bigger opportunities that have hit here in the last month have been enough to where we could look at them and look at the future of where OSIDA plays, how the state of Oklahoma plays, and start positioning us really in the critical path for some of the major space activities for our nation, which is what we're all trying to do. One of the other things that we've been working on is the Oklahoma Space Renaissance Vision, and we have that in a place where I'd really like to spend some time with you guys offline as well, reviewing that document. And we approach that document not only from the strategic idea of Oklahoma within the space industry, looking at what are the current capabilities and kind of the things that differentiate us from the state or from other states that are competing for the industry jobs and opportunity, all the way down through what are the specific opportunities we should be pursuing as a state. And I think sometimes there's this idea that we need to go out and compete in what I would call maybe a red ocean, some of these areas where everybody's competing for the same things. What I'd like to see us do, what we would like to see us do, is be thinking a little bit further down the road and looking at our assets and looking at the kind of the between our research communities and our private sector companies and our private capital and the state of Oklahoma. How do we bring some of these together to pursue opportunities that are just a couple years down the road and position Oklahoma to win in a big way? And so we've got meetings lined up with companies that fit that bill here over the next 30 days as well, to get them here to the state, to get them out to the spaceport, and also to meet with specific folks in our state to look at what are they looking for as they think about future expansion. And some of these are in the biomedical, kind of pharmaceutical research field in low Earth orbit and microgravity. And others are more in the hard manufacturing, things where we're actually building things that are going to go to space. So there's been a lot of progress, and we've had I think some tremendous opportunities come our way in just a very short amount of time, things that, to be honest, we didn't even foresee happening this quickly. So it's been a good first month. So I'll stop there and just take questions.
Well, I just want to say I think it's a very unique opportunity we have right now in Oklahoma to have the Artemis Group and the ability for your group to know not only what is going on in the state, but also nationally and internationally to help drive that strategy so we can find those niches where Oklahoma really excels and can compete and win business.
And what I think our mission here is to look at Oklahoma as a whole, right? What are all of the different resources and assets we can bring to bear as a state to compete? And it's tremendous to see the amount of support and cooperation and teamwork that's come together, even this week, that we're experiencing this week as we prepare to host a very large company here in the state of Oklahoma. So some really good things.
Yes, excellent.
Yep.
Questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Moving on to agenda item number 8. Do we need to read this Artemis Group deliverables information?
Well, that's just from the statement of work.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next item would be the discussion on hangar 233 roof repair. That and the Artemis Group project and some of the other projects, I think it's important to note at this time that I've been visiting with some policymakers and given our budget and our current appropriations, what is taking place at the state capitol, there's some opportunities as we're making these improvements and we're showing the public what we are getting accomplished out here, that there might be some opportunities to visit with the financial group of the board and talk about some opportunities for maybe asking and getting some of the projects off the board and continuing to expand the capabilities and possibilities of other things we can do out here. And this is a good opportunity to put those ideas and plans together as we start to approach the legislature with our budget for this next coming year. So that being said, using some of that prep money, it was brought to our attention that there's some hangar repairs that need to be taken place at the, this is the building, this is the hangar that PAC uses as their headquarters hangar. This is their toolbox and their, where they keep their manuals and things of that nature. This is our biggest and our nicest hangar. This has got electric doors. It's got office space and bathroom space inside. And they did, back in the early 90s, they did a roof or an expansion to the hangar. They added an entire front end to this hangar. So where that joint is, continues to leak. And so this is some pictures from the roof. We asked a number of roofing companies to come in and take a look at the roof and give us their assessment on what they thought they would do to make the repairs. And I'll let Vice Chair Gillette take it from here.
Okay, there were, I believe, do you have a slide that shows all the alternatives we looked at?
I don't have the slide with the alternatives, but we'd asked,
So,
four companies came out.
Okay,
and
so
three-
there were four companies, and it was kind of a tug of war between doing a long-term fix and the short term. We have a customer, a paying customer, who is unhappy with what we're providing because it keeps leaking on his tools and his tech manuals, and that's just not acceptable. Of the four, the most, I'll use the word reasonable, the cheapest and the quickest was the Maccabee Fox Roofing, LLC. They've done some work out here before, and so for us, the driving factor was we wanted to take care of our current customer. It provides a 10-year warranty on the roof repair, and our thinking was that, and is that this will provide enough of a solution, and in 10 years we might decide to do something entirely different. The other alternatives were in the neighborhood of $400,000, so quite a big bit of difference here in the pricing, although they were more permanent fixes, and they would have taken longer to get in place. So our recommendation to the board, before I do that, Bailey, do you have anything you want to add?
No.
Okay. Our recommendation to the board is to go ahead with the solution proposed by Maccabee Fox Roofing and get this done quickly and take care of our customer. Questions?
And what is the timeline when they could start and complete?
They said it could start in the second week of November,
Okay. And about how long is the duration of the project?
3 weeks.
Oh, okay, that would be good.
Yeah.
Does that include the week of Thanksgiving? Or are they taking that week off? They got to work?
I think their goal is to get it completed before Thanksgiving.
Going to start
Good
the second
incentive.
week of November,
It's a
3
second-
weeks and be done by Thanksgiving?
Second Monday of November.
I'll
have to
go
look
for
at
that. All right.
That's good incentive.
Right?
So those of us that watch the weather every day, I'll plan on 3 weeks of rain about
Right.
that time.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to go into Thanksgiving on that one.
Yeah. Great.
So fairly quickly, though.
Yes,
Before
that's great.
December.
Yeah, that's good. All right, any other discussion?
Just a question for the AG staff. Have you reviewed this bid, and does it meet all of our necessary parameters? Do you see anything in it that flags you to?
I wasn't part of this, so I had assumed that you.
Yeah, we're exempt from the competitive bidding process. So
Okay.
This is, we got a number of bids for it. We had them all come out and take a look at the same piece of property, give us their assessment on what they thought would make the solution, and this is the company that the board comes to approval with.
Very good. All right, do we have a motion?
I move we approve the bid for Maccabee Fox Roofing.
Second?
All right, Kim, could you please take the vote?
Mr. Gillette,
Aye.
Mr. Schultz,
Aye.
Mr. Siegfried,
Aye.
Chairman Rolls.
Aye. Thank you all for working on that. I think that's a very important improvement to have made. We got the best value option. Yes. All right, moving on then to agenda item 9, discussion of the November board meeting. So currently that board meeting is scheduled for November 8th, and that's the published meeting date. However, that is also the same day as the Oklahoma Aerospace Forum, and that would be an unfortunate conflict.
Three of our board members will be, maybe four of our board meetings will probably be at that meeting, so we'd have a real challenge of making a quorum, because that's an all-day event, so we need to find a time to replace that particular board meeting, and then it's probably just as good a time as any to look at 2024 and set our meeting dates for next year.
Are we thinking of moving it up a week or back a week to the 1st or 15th?
I would say my vote is moved to the 1st. Very rarely do I ever have a conflict. I probably have the most open schedule of any board meeting. But I am scheduled for a hip replacement on the 14th of November, and so I would not make a 15th board meeting.
Yes, you would definitely not. Okay. What day is November 1st?
It's a Wednesday.
A Wednesday.
It is the day after Halloween, I guess, there.
Ah, that's right.
You'll still look like Yoda, though, won't you?
You'll have paint on your, yeah.
It might.
All right. How does November 1st sound?
It's okay with me.
Good?
It works.
Tentatively. So that'll be a special meeting,
Mhm.
since we'll be canceling the November 8th. We'll be scheduling a November 1 meeting. And then, do you want to go ahead and make this opportunity to start looking at, or do you want to use the November 1 meeting to set the dates for 2024?
So we tentatively are the third Wednesday of the month, or the second Wednesday of the month. I think it's okay to go ahead and maybe set that as a tentative plan, and then at our next board meeting, let's firm it up when hopefully we will have additional board members available.
Do you want to do that every month or every other month, starting in January?
I think every other month has been a really good cadence for us. There's enough that occurs within that time frame that I believe this is a good use of time, and then we're also not having a meeting without enough content, so to speak.
And as you said, we can discuss that at the November 1st meeting. But this is a good kind of get that in front of the board members so they can start marking their calendars and they have an opportunity to.
Absolutely.
I will make this argument on behalf of Dr. Henry. If we're going to be the second Wednesday and we set them, we need to stay to that, because he, above anybody else, schedules all of his patients around this meeting, and when we move it, he can't move all those appointments, and feel pretty sure he won't be at the November 1st meeting either for that reason. So I just would remind us that when we set the 2024 calendar, I would argue on his behalf that if we set the second Wednesday, we stay to the second Wednesday.
Point well taken. Thank you. Okay. Do we need to vote, or we've just moved the meeting date and we're good?
Well, we're not going to approve it until next meeting, so,
Yes, but the special meeting date?
the special meeting.
We'll go ahead and.
We'll just do that.
We'll follow the open meetings process for that as we did for this one.
Okay.
Since it'll be a special meeting, we have to notify everybody
Yes.
48 hours.
Okay,
2
and
business
post.
days, which
Yeah.
is why we did it on Thursdays.
Yep.
Thursday, Friday.
Good. Okay. Well, that brings us to agenda item number 10, in
Oh.
board member comments.
Wow.
No pressure at all right there.
What do I do?
Uh,
Or a comment?
Well.
Oh, there's more.
Oh.
Here's the thing. So,
I'm gonna
if
step out of
anyone
y'all's
has,
way.
has no more comments, then Bailey, we wanted to take a few minutes to just extend our appreciation for your service to OSIDA as chair. You've been an excellent leader, and you have, I think, helped broaden our focus and give us some new inspiration and motivation. So we got a couple of items for you.
These photos are great.
Yeah,
Wow.
Craig
I'm
did
just
the photos.
You said board member comments. I didn't know what I was supposed to say, and see these great photos. Gosh, I guess I've been here a while.
Well, look how young you were.
That's right.
No. So one thing we got is a star registration for you, the Bailey J.
Wow.
So the
Bailey J
coordinates are
star.
there, and you can look up at the night sky and find your star, because
Wow.
you are a star. You've
You're
really been.
wonderful.
Yes.
Wow.
So give
That's
me that.
amazing. My own star. Thank you. Look at that.
the Bailey Day start. Then this is less,
Oh, wow. My goodness, I've never had anything like this.
okay. And I know I'm gonna get fingerprints all over it, but for you as well.
Wow, thank you
Says,
so much.
Thank you for elevating the vision of OSIDA or something
Thank
along
you.
those lines.
Oh, my gosh.
So,
Thank you all.
yeah,
Thank you.
just smile. Because now he'll put more pictures of you up there.
Yes. Well, it's been my honor to serve and be a part of this for the great state and to have fun. I mean, who doesn't love space?
So you've done an excellent
So
job.
thank you. And recruiting, I think, quite a
Go
handful
back
of
one
you.
slide.
Yes.
I would like to comment on that top left-hand corner.
That was,
About what was fixing to take
yeah.
place right there.
That was, we were testing the aerodynamics out on the 3-mile runway. with,
What did you
You
find
did not,
out?
you did not leave the
It's the-
ground.
We didn't leave the ground, but it was the fastest I've ever gone in a car. With the Administrator Bridenstine. That was pretty neat.
And then that middle one is kind of fun.
Yes, there's some history there. I always say that there's, getting to space, there's always catastrophic things that happen, whether it be human life, but also, effort and a state's effort. So, but to get to space, you gotta have some failures. Always happens. Yeah.
That's Bailey flying the simulator at the Tulsa Air and Space Museum.
Oh, yeah, that's
That
right.
OSIDA funded for that project.
That's a shuttle.
Yeah, that's a shuttle lander.
Landed it, and there's our Nordam autoclave. And
That's
Yeah,
him with
great.
Robert Ragazzino. Robert is the gentleman with the dog. Robert has flown a Stearman around the world, and he's rebuilt the Spirit of St. Louis, and it's sitting in the background, but he's got scads of hours. So I thought that was a neat photo of a couple of
Yeah.
really, really neat pilots standing next to each other. And of course, our illustrious board, that's a conglomeration of the recent board chairs at the Tinker and the Primes. That's, of course, Bailey and Don Weddicam and Brenda, Dr. Rolls
Yeah.
there in the middle shot.
Swearing in our soon-to-be new chair.
Right?
And the first female chair and American Indian. Love that.
And that's
There's
when
another one.
The top right is Bailey sitting in the front of the bus with General Ben Robinson, giving a
right.
tour to the commerce team as they came out and toured the facility. And that's the bottom right is clearly a few years ago with our former board chair, our board treasurer, Michael
I think
Halsley.
we visited you that day, presented. I think they said that was one of the first times that the board or the chair had gone and presented with the executive director.
That probably was. And then, of course, that's the first Oklahoma space breakfast at
Yes.
Oklahoma at the Space Symposium in Colorado Springs.
I love it. Golly, wow, thank you. Glad I came today.
Us too.
Yes.
No, thank you.
And I can still get to have the chairman's dinner or chairman's breakfast or event at the spaceport because now I'm chair emeritus.
Right?
All
You're
right.
chair emeritus. That's right.
Thank you so much. Wow,
Well, thank
what an
you.
honor. It's been an honor to serve the state in this capacity of, space. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, any other board comments?
I think there was at least one person who had requested we comment from the floor.
Yeah, we checked with the attorney, but so we could
As a
conclude- we could
point
conclude-
of personal privilege, representing District 55, I would just like to encourage you guys, to keep up the good work, to bring the vision to life that Bailey has worked on, that you all have worked on. There is a lot of opportunity for additional funding, for resources, but we need to see those projects start moving. And so projects like the roof project that you have just approved, as well as the broadband and those kinds of expansions. I would just encourage you all to move on those as quickly as you can, and so that sparks a lot more interest from the legislative side and the funding of those dollars to fund additional projects to help spark that growth. I think that there is a great opportunity for the whole park there to really see the growth that we've seen in northeastern Oklahoma and some of those areas with the industrial parks that the state operates. And so I would just encourage you all to try to bring that vision to life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for those comments. And we share your passion for bringing this vision to life, and will be, all the forward movement is good. And, you know, OSIDA got some federal funds that have really helped be able to make some of these projects happen. So that is, Craig is running fast and trying to get all the pieces laying flat so we can make it a thriving area. Thank you. Any other comments?
No.
Hearing no other comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Kim?
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Siegfried?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye. And the meeting is adjourned.